Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Layman's Law School. I'm joined today, once again, with my steady compadre, Mr. Chace Hawk. Glad to have you back, brother.
Thank you.
That was a terrible, terrible intro for you. I mean, come on, you got to throw me something.
He's excited to be here.
I know. He's very nervous. He's very nervous. Also, we're joined by Lindsey McCullough, one of the fine ladies that works with us. Happy that you're here and back to give us a little bit of a boost in our viewership. I think you add a little something that maybe Sean doesn't have.
I'll try my best to fill Sean's shoes today. Although you won't get as much of the legal expertise. I'm just,
you'd be surprised.
Just wisdom.
You'd be surprised.
Wisdom, strength, and beauty.
Exactly.
There we go.
So Lindsey is going to give us our topic today, but before we do that, I hate to do this to you, Chace. I know it's been a long day.
You love to do this to me.
It's the highlight of your week.
It really is. But, Chace loves Bud Light.
Sadist.
Look, you got to let me have my fun, too. Come on, there you go.
I do miss
that's
Sean.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think you need to go to confession on Sunday.
I do miss Sean because there's no high noons when Sean's on.
That's true.
Cheers.
That's true. Cheers. Hose pipe?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hose pipe. Is that what you got there?
Dirty metal.
I don't know what it is that your discomfort makes me so happy. I know that's something wrong with me.
Yeah, I think that's something you and my wife bond over, actually.
Yes, me and Miss Whitney do love that. And
just funny to watch suffer.
That is true. But not like physical pain. You used to be MMA, and I didn't like watching you get beat up there. I just like to see you drink things that you don't like to drink.
All right.
Things of that nature. Harmless fun. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, that's better than liking watching me get beat up.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Don't you think it's way better?
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is how I make friends, y'all. God.
So anyway,
so we
do have a topic today, and Miss Lindsey is going to let us know what we're going to be discussing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Before we do,
sure.
right, you guys have to know that a lot of times we discuss very difficult topics, and this is an absolute tragedy and everything that happened here in Georgia, and we're very sensitive to that, and we're just doing what we can to explain some of the overall arching kind of legal issues that we see that are not necessarily attainable or understandable for the regular
and we deal with this all the time, so we're not trying to absolutely not be callous. It's just you got to have, when you're discussing things like this, you got to try to be as light as you can, because it's a heavy subject.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
So with that, Lindsey, introduce it. I mean, what an intro for you.
Yeah. So I'll give a little case summary. So today we're going to talk about Laken Riley, who was a 22-year-old nursing student who was brutally murdered back in February of this year while she was jogging near the UGA campus. And this actually her death marked the first homicide that the UGA campus had in over 20 years. Oof. And the guy who's accused of her murder, his name is Jose Ibarra, and he was a Venezuelan national who had other crimes that included kidnapping and aggravated assault. And I think that's one thing that people are a little upset about because he had previous crimes. He had priors, yeah. And so the fact that, of course, people are like, why was he even out? Why was he able to do this? And of course, when you say that he was, not from here, people are like, wait. And then it brings up a lot of border talk. Yeah. So kind of a hot button topic, obviously, for our country right now. But I think, this is, of course, hitting closer to home. And so we felt like this was a good topic, particularly because of some news that just broke about this case earlier this week, in that they're going to trial, but the defense is actually requested for a bench trial, which is very uncommon, as I understand it, in a criminal trial. Usually we're more familiar with a jury trial happens with criminal. And so that, to me, as the laywoman of the group, that was my question to these guys, was like, wait a minute, what's a bench trial? And what does that mean? And we were like, you know what? Let's talk about that on the podcast.
Well, I'll start, Chace, and I'm gonna skip the question. That's the truth. I'm not a politician, but I did want to make one thing, because it came up a little bit, is like you said, and the general layperson does say, why is this person out? They have prior stuff, blah blah blah. This is the thing that judges have to battle all the time, and they really, at least here I can wholeheartedly say this, is that they err on the side of caution. But you have to have that balance as a judge, and it's very difficult to say, you're taking away one person's liberty, their freedom, and to protect society. But where is that line? And you can't. All right, this person's got a shoplifting charge. You can't put him in prison for the rest of his life. So, like, that balance is tough. And anytime something like this happens, they look back and say, well, this judge only kept him in for a year. Well, maybe that charge, maybe that was strong. Maybe that was a strong
peeping Tom.
Maybe that was a strong sentence for that charge. So I think that's the most difficult thing that a judge has to do. I really do, because the judge is that middle guy. He has to balance protection, or she has to balance that protection of society and the constitutional right of the defendant, and that's extremely difficult. I just wanted to get off my soapbox there and say that part.
The basic idea is, with a bench trial, you have a judge deciding what the facts are in the case and what the law is in the case. So typically the way it would work is you would have a jury, and then they listen to the witnesses and the evidence in the case, and then they say, we think he was there at the scene because of this evidence, and this evidence, and we think he did have the intent to kill this person, and so therefore we're going to render a verdict of guilty, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the judge is going to be the one that makes decisions in that situation about, can this come in? Is that hearsay testimony? Am I going to overrule that objection? He's the referee that is watching how the attorneys actually put forward their case and play the game.
Yep.
And the jury is the ones that actually get to decide who wins. He just calls the fouls, right? And plays by the rules of the game. But in a situation where you have a bench trial, no jury.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was done in this case because of the fact this is a foreign national. Okay. That he's likely to be tried in Athens, Clarke County. Or he's being tried right now in Athens, Clarke County. And this is a highly, highly publicized case.
Yep.
And had he been a Athens, Clarke County resident and lived there all of his life, right, it would be reasonable for you to assume that he might be able to get a fair trial there. But this was so nationally publicized. It was talked about by Donald Trump. Everybody in that county knew about it, that it was going to be difficult to actually get a jury. And the defense in the case said the only situation that we have that might actually lend us any sort of ability to get out of this is some sort of technical legal standard, right? That a jury is not going to they're going to be so overwhelmed by the evidence in the case and the brutality of how this occurred that they're going to definitely convict him. And so this was a strategic decision by the defense. To actually have a judge involved in it, and I think the defense knows where this is going, no matter what. Yeah. But this was in YSL. What do we have? 10 months of jury selection, trying to get a fair jury. So I think we're trying to avoid some of that.
I think two things that need to be pointed out. Number one is the defendant gets to choose this. So when you hear somebody like this comes in the news, it's going to be a bench trial versus jury trial. The prosecution, that's not their right. They have to, and also, so when you hear this, the defendant chose a bench trial. That's uncommon, right? So that tells you, number one, something's going on. Something's going on. Number two, if you, as a defense attorney, you want to look at the strongest argument you have. If this kind of goes to what Chace was saying, if the strongest argument you have is factual, is a dispute between facts, then you want a jury to be the decider.
Right.
If the strongest argument you have is a technicality of law, or a law saying this should not be allowed in, the collection of evidence was wrong, the investigation was done wrong, then you want the judge to decide, because the judge is not going to get swayed by emotion. No matter what you say with the jury, and no matter how much the judge says, these are the rules of the game. You cannot listen to this. I overruled it. You cannot look at this piece of evidence. The jury's going to do whatever the hell they want to do.
Okay.
And so that's why you argue facts with the jury. You argue the law with the judge.
Okay, I don't want to change the subject.
Last thing.
I have a question.
Okay, last thing on that.
Okay.
Any kind of brief that you see with any lawyer, you always see them say the trier of fact. And this is the reason. They don't say the jury, the trier of fact. And the trier of fact could be the jury or it could be the judge, depending on what you choose. That's why it's written that way.
Okay.
But now your question.
All right. I feel like we had to take a total
No, it's
time
fine.
out from what we're talking about for a second. In the way that you just described the strategy and the theory behind that, and maybe it's different in Massachusetts, but why in the world didn't Karen Reid's defense ask for a bench trial instead of a jury trial?
No, the facts,
Because
because the
were
emotion,
based around the investigation.
yeah, but the emotion,
not being done correct.
right? But that was the emotion of how it happened, not actually how it happened. It wasn't. I didn't have a check-in that said Sergeant so and so at 2:03 checked this in, and at 2:02 said he checked it out. There's a discrepancy that the judge can kick that out. It wasn't like that. It was like
There was some stuff like that.
not. It wasn't. It's still.
I did not want to turn
It's
this into
still
a Karen Reid podcast.
no. But what we're doing is arguing about facts. We're not arguing about the law.
Okay.
We're arguing about what took place.
Okay.
And if you have that, and you have corruption, you want 12 jurors to go, I live in this place. This is wrong. Where if it was
I'm
argue
gonna
of
find
the law,
a way to do what I want.
exactly.
Gotcha.
If this was the law, you wouldn't have it would be more of case law says you have to do this. No, this case law says you have to do that. It's not. There's a broken tail light on the ground. Was it covered up or not?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Judges are professionals at putting their emotions aside
100%.
and
Right.
following the rules.
Okay.
And so in a situation where the judge doesn't like it, let's just say, for instance, there's a rule that says you have to hand the lawsuit to them on May 15th, right? And if you hand it to them on May 17th, your case is kicked out of court. That person could be responsible for your injuries. Your injuries could be really terrible. They could be the richest person in the world, and you could be the poorest person in the world. And that judge's job is to kick your case out of court, and they will do it because that's what the law says.
And
because they understand the deeper principle
worst
of there being a rule of law that is applied in this country fairly across the board. And so in this situation, the defendant, or there's a lot of evidence in this case, right?
Yep.
And one of the only things, there was an 8-minute opening by the defense in this case, and one of the only things he talked about was the fact that when it comes to the DNA evidence, right, that had to be analyzed by a spectrometer, some sort of machine, right, because a person's analysis wasn't good enough. But when it came to the fingerprint, no machine registered his fingerprint because he was foreign national, right? And so they only actually confirmed that it was his fingerprint with a person. So it's like, how is one standard good in one situation, one standard not right in the other? And so he is just basically trying to appeal to technicality for the judge.
Gotcha.
And this is one where if you don't have bullets, you throw rocks.
Yep.
You don't have rocks, you blow on them.
Well,
and so this is defendant.
It's the old. That goes to that old expression of if you have facts, you argue the facts. If you have law, you argue the law. If you don't have either, you try to muddy the water. It's an old defense, and that's kind of what it feels like.
People.
Yeah, it feels like to me. And but there are other things that you have where, you may be arguing about standing and stuff like that of who actually can hear the case and all that, which you would absolutely need a judge instead of a jury. To give you another example, Lindsey, is my dad was a prosecutor for a long time, and he is tormented by a case, and I'm not going to go all into it, but the law said he had to prosecute the case, and he didn't believe in the law. He believed that it wasn't even a question. The person did what it was accused of, but he didn't believe in the law, and he had to prosecute the case. Like, he had to take his emotion out and say, this is what the law says, I have to do this, I have to prosecute. And the judge didn't want to do it either, and the guy got sentenced. But neither the judge or the prosecutor wanted the law, liked the law, but their job was to do the law. Which sucks, right? But that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask you, Lindsey, so how do you think that the foreign national issue plays a role in the way this is all played out? What's like on a gut level, in your intuition, morality kind of tell you about how he should be treated in this case?
Well, I think obviously with things that are going on in our country, that's probably why this got more national attention.
Sure.
Right?
And the timing, the timing of it.
The timing of it, everything. The thing is that I don't care if he was from another country or not.
Sure.
He's such a bad person. It's what happens to people.
Right.
That unfortunately this is, it doesn't matter where he was from.
Exactly. So you hit upon the key point. It doesn't matter where he's from. Okay, but we have recognized in this country that there are certain what they call immutable characteristics. The fact that you're a different race, the fact that you have a different gender, that you're disabled, that you are a foreign national. That is a thing that you can't change, that we have recognized that people actually actively discriminate against, right? And so that's part of the reason why there are a lot of actual constitutional protections for this guy, because they recognize that the masses, the majority will abuse these people. And so I think it's ultimately a good thing. But it is hard to do, to actually give a person like this is probably going to be a public defender, to give him a trial, considering the evidence against him. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Yep. He was videoed putting a jacket and gloves that had her blood on it with her hair in it into a dumpster. Yeah. Okay. His fingerprint was put on her phone. She tried to call 911. He is alleged to have actually touched the phone to end the call. So his fingerprint was found on her. He's videoed in trail cams following her in the area. So why are we actually going through the trial? Because in this country we've decided that and it's a reason why everybody comes here to do business, is that everyone is giving a fair day in court with an attorney that's going to zealously pursue your case, and that's why we're special.
It's like you said, it's very difficult. I don't know all the facts of this case, but it's very difficult to allow that to take place. But the flip side of that is way worse. And so when you have somebody that doesn't speak English that well, it's hard to give them a defense, right? Because they can't tell you exactly what happens. And I watch a ton of Braves baseball. Ronald Acuna, Ozuna, all the stars speak Spanish, and they have a great interpreter. But you still lose the emotion when the interpreter tells you what they're saying about their big home run to win the game, right? Yeah. It doesn't. Because the interpreter and he's great, flat. But he's great, but it still doesn't quite work. Yeah. So you have to protect against that. And it, like you said, Chace, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's natural for you to hear these terrible things about somebody, and then when the person comes up and says, I didn't do it, but they can't speak your language, it's hard to have empathy or believe them. And so you have to have these safeguards, not only for people being accused of things, but you have to have them for the system as a whole, to have a belief in the system, right? If we didn't have that, then and you didn't have a chance for this guy, who obviously from what you've read and what y'all have told me is more than guilty. I mean, he's guilty, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you have to have a avenue to go through all these things, or every case that you ever had would be looked at as like, well, is that really real? Is that really true? Did he really do this, or she really do this? You have to go to the lowest denominator and prove that one beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to do it every single time, or you lose complete faith in all credibility in all of it.
Yeah. And so, what is this in the Bible? Is it what you do unto the least of me is what you do unto me?
Right.
So you have to remember that rule plays out in our court system. So whatever you do to the least of us, in this case, this guy is what appears to be a rapist, a murderer, a person that's not supposed, a horrible human being. But you have to, in order to live in a fair and just country, if you are going to have your liberty deprived of you, if you're going to be put to death, if you're going to be put in jail, that you have to have an opportunity to present a defense in a competent way and present witnesses and confront the people that have accused you, and to have a fair hearing. Okay, that's what we've decided as a people is necessary, and it's what we spend money to actually do. And in this case, one of the values of actually, and I applaud the defense attorney for doing this, for actually moving for it, because he's strategically probably doing the right thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, he wouldn't have a chance with a jury. It would just
zero.
It would get crushed.
And he's probably got a 0.1% chance of this.
And
but,
so they spent $6 million trying to pick a jury in YSL.
Right.
They would spend all kinds of money. They have to
Are
pay
you
the juries
kidding me?
every day. They have
It's been on the news.
Right.
Trying to find people that don't know this.
So this guy is actually presenting a good defense, trying not to cost the taxpayers a whole lot of money, trying not to bother a bunch of people with a jury, by picking a jury, and they're going to get justice for this woman.
The one thing to add on that, Chace, to take up for the defense attorney here, like you said, I guarantee you it's a public defender, and he doesn't, or she doesn't have a choice to. People are like, "Well, how could you represent this?" I'll go represent this guy. That doesn't mean I'm going to like him or I believe that he's innocent. But the defendant chooses if they want to plead or not. This guy's saying, "I'm not going to plead."
Yeah.
He has to be able to have a day in court, and if a lawyer doesn't represent him, then he'll never go to jail. He'll never go to prison because he didn't get represented. So somebody's got to do it. Well, somebody's got to step up and represent this dude.
And on the other side of the coin, because everybody is allowed to have a fair defense, no matter who you are, what you are, whatever, I imagine that if someone had been wrongfully accused, no matter who they are, they would want the same thing.
100%.
So
and that's where you get in. And that's where you get into this do unto thee, not unto me situation. And that's a lot of us out there, including myself. You go, well, I don't throw that dude in the, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But if I was charged, hell, I need to have my rights. I need to be able to speak up and say what happened and all that. So it is very easy to say you're right. You're right. It's very easy to do that on the outside until it happens to you or your family. And then you go, you know what? I need my fair shake at this thing. So it definitely is emotional, and to wrap it kind of back up is that's why the bench trial is happening, to remove emotion. That's really the key.
And when you're talking about who that defense attorney is representing, and in these situations, and I've represented people I've known have been guilty.
Same.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, who and what I'm representing is the system I just described.
Absolutely.
I am representing that in this country, that this is how we do it. That I'm going to come forward, I'm going to present this person's best defense, and the evidence is overwhelming, but I'm still going to do it, and I'm going to do it because I believe that this is the right thing to do.
Yep.
That if I were in this situation and I really didn't do it, even if the evidence is overwhelming, I would want somebody to zealously advocate for me to try and help me out of that situation, because there's all these times where we find somebody 30 years later
that the people were sure he was guilty.
Sure he was guilty, put him in jail, and DNA exonerates him. And so we have always had a policy of it is better for 10 people to go free than one man to be incarcerated unjustly, because if you don't believe it's one of the things people can't live without.
Yep.
You can't live without a feeling of that the place that you live in is just and fair. People will revolt and not believe in the system. And so I think it's important to represent that and support that.
I agree with you 100%.
Very
good statement.
Even if you have to represent somebody like this.
I promise you I've done it, and I don't want to, and I don't want to do it again, but I will. Yeah. Same thing. Yep. That's all we got.
Yeah, I agree.
You want to go get tattoos?
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to end it on. So I appreciate everybody who watches, and please hit the like and subscribe. I'll get in trouble if I don't say that by Lindsey. So I'll say it. Turn on your notifications.
So
I forget. I don't know. I guess I'm getting boomerish, so I don't know all the stuff to say. But we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or recommendations for things that you would like for us to cover, please leave them in the comments, and we will certainly do so. Thanks again.